To my melanin family and spiritually conscious brothers and sisters around the world. I am Brother Tommy. And it is time to get it in. One love, family. This video is the start of a series called Mind Control in the US. Part 1. The most effective way to protect yourself from subconscious manipulation is to be aware of how it works. Steven Jacobson, author of Mind Control in the United States, is a film technician experienced in subliminal techniques used in the communication media. Subliminal perception is a deliberate process created by communications technicians, by which you receive and respond to information and instructions without being consciously aware of the instructions. Scary? You bet your life it is? And as Jacobson details in this book, it is happening in America today. Mind Control in the United States is an introduction to the history and practice of subliminal communication. It outlines the principles of mental programming, i.e., that an initial distraction must be followed by repetitive commands, and it tells you how these ideas are implemented. Further, the book tells you when and where it has been used. Jacobson's examples range from in-flight motion pictures incorporated in its onboard films to general audience movies such as Reefer Madness, The Exorcist, and My World Dies Screaming. The effects on audiences are graphically described. The case of the movie The Exorcist is especially interesting. William Peter Blatty, author of the book and producer of the movie, is a former CIA operative. Blatty had an extensive career in government psychological manipulations. One has to be pretty naive to argue there is no connection between Blatty's CIA career and his choice of communications techniques. Similarly, subliminal techniques have been used on radio and television. Current research has moved heavily into extrasensory perception, ESP, the use of meditation, and marijuana to generate altered states of consciousness. Out-of-body experiences are apparently better documented as research has progressed far beyond general belief. Just who is responsible for this intrusive experimentation with free individuals in a free society? Author Jacobson presents example after example identifying the so-called Eastern establishment, that coterie made up of the Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers, and other assorted elitists as the primary source. Even at the White House level, deception was practiced not only by that master deceiver, Richard Nixon, but also by Presidents Johnson, Carter, and Reagan. At the corporate level, every large advertising agency has experimented with subliminal manipulation. Finally, deception has been used to disguise the pervasive erosion of our constitutionally guaranteed freedoms. Unfortunately for us, George Orwell's 1984 was right on schedule. What is alarming is that very few citizens realize that deception is already part of the social framework. We don't know that 1984 has already arrived because we have been conditioned not to know. By the same means, the media has created a state of inner turmoil in citizens through portrayal of violence and chaos and irrational behavior. This inner state is reflected in the chaotic world outside. What can you do? Hopefully this book will increase your sense of skepticism when it comes to the establishment and its representatives. Less obviously, you do have a duty to freedom to find the truth and spread the truth. Mind Control in the United States will be invaluable in this task. At least you will know who tried to brainwash you and how they tried. 1984. In the book 1984, George Orwell warns that people are in danger of losing their human qualities and freedom of mind without being aware of it while it is happening because of psychological engineering. We have learned to expect the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China to use mind control on its citizens, but not the free world. Nevertheless, the same techniques are being used in the United States. The most effective way to protect yourself from subconscious manipulation is by being aware of how it works. The techniques used to enslave the mind are the same used to free it. The use of social engineering to influence and control what people think makes a mockery of the informed consent of the governed, the very cornerstone of the Constitution. The programming and conditioning of the mind is not a legitimate function of government. The ultimate control is to control people without their conscious awareness. It is the hallmark of tyranny. Principles of mental programming. The most effective way to conquer a man is to capture his mind. Control a man's mind and you control his body. Most people don't pay conscious attention to the things that affect them subconsciously. They don't usually know what to look for. However, when pointed to, these things can be recognized and understood. The principles of mind control, hypnotic suggestion and mental programming are ancient. The term used doesn't matter, the principles remain the same. The goal is to suspend the thought processes of the conscious mind to cause a state of mind that is just like daydreaming. Stop conscious thought and the mind is in its most suggestible state and is more receptive to programming than at any other time. Therefore, the first principle of mind control is distraction. Distraction focuses the attention of the conscious mind on one or more of the five senses, sight, sound, touch, smell and taste, in order to program the subconscious mind. All men do not think the same thoughts, but all men think with the same mechanism, the brain. One part of the brain works things out one step at a time, just like a computer. This is the language using left side of the brain, which is also identified as the conscious mind. The tools of the conscious mind are words, spoken, written and thought, and pictures and sounds. The conscious mind discriminates, evaluates, accepts or rejects. Sometimes the more you think about a problem, the further you get from finding a solution to it. When this happens, you make decisions based on how you feel. I didn't arrive at my understanding of the fundamental laws of the universe through my rational mind, said Albert Einstein. The powers of intuition are the powers of the subconscious mind. The right side of the brain is the center of intuition, creativity, emotion. Use the force, Luke. The force is an energy field created by all living things. Trust your feelings, not the computer. The force in Star Wars is Hollywood's version of an ancient principle. Think of your subconscious mind as your link with the force. Also think of your subconscious mind as your own personal energy source. Now imagine your conscious thoughts directing this energy source and drawing power from the force. This is the relationship of the conscious mind to the subconscious. What the conscious mind believes, the subconscious acts on. It works like programming a computer. You feed information into a computer, and the computer acts on it. However, if the information you feed into the computer is wrong, it still acts on it. If you give yourself incorrect information or if others give you incorrect information, the memory banks of your conscious mind do not correct the error but act on it. When you stop conscious thinking and let your mind go blank, then your mind is in its most suggestible state. It is in this state of mind where you are the most receptive to mental programming. This state of mind is just like daydreaming. Now remember the first principle behind mental programming. That principle is distraction. Distraction focuses the attention of the conscious mind on one or more of the senses in order to program the subconscious mind. The same principle applies to all illusion, magic and propaganda. The second principle of mental programming is repetition. Distraction and repetition represent the learning process. Picture yourself studying in school. You are reading a book. Your eyes are focused on the page of the book. The words on the page are the conscious distraction for your eyes. The information you are reading is being programmed directly to your subconscious mind. You are not consciously analyzing the material you are reading until you look away from the page and think about it. It is at this point you have the opportunity to analyze the information you have just read and accept it as true or reject it as false. If you accept the information as true, it is programmed that way to your subconscious mind. If you reject the information as false, that is programmed to your subconscious mind. However, if you don't know if the information is true or not, a curious thing happens. Your trust in the source of the information determines whether or not you accept the information. If you do not believe that a book could contain information that was false, unintentionally or intentionally, then you would accept its information as true even if you weren't sure or didn't understand it. This is especially true in school where there is pressure to accept what is presented as true because that is what is expected and that determines your grade and your future. Repetition of the information embeds it in your subconscious mind so that your acceptance of its truth, accuracy, becomes a conditioned response. You accept this information as true without thinking whenever it is presented to you again. The dictionary defines the word mind as the place where thinking occurs. The word control means to regulate, direct or exercise control over. The term mind control refers to a broad spectrum of psychological techniques, both internal and external, ranging from simple control of information to trauma-based mind control, torture, electromagnetic mind control, implantation of thoughts and feelings by radio frequency transmission, and surgical implants designed to regulate, direct and exercise control over the mind and thus over thinking, feeling, willing, behavior and memory. The power of music. Think back to a time when you have been saddened by a song. It may have brought a tear. You might have felt it in your stomach as a change in muscle tension. The power of music has been recognized throughout history. Plato and Aristotle believed that people could be controlled by music. It affects your body, your mind and your emotions. Sound causes changes in your body chemistry, blood pressure, breathing and digestion. Even sound that you cannot hear affects you. Low-frequency infrasonic sounds affect your internal organs and can cause headaches, nausea, dizziness and fatigue. Fast music will speed up the nervous system while slow music will slow it down. Your entire body is sensitive to sound. Sounds vibrate in different parts of the body. Low tones will vibrate in the lower parts of your body, and high tones will vibrate in the higher portions and on into the head. 60s rock superstar Jimi Hendrix said, "You can hypnotize people with music, and when you get them at their weakest point you can preach into their subconscious whatever you want to say." Much of today's popular rock music is built around a heavy bass pattern louder than the melody. These loud, low-frequency vibrations and the driving beat of most rock music affect the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland produces hormones that control the sexual responses of males and females. These low-frequency vibrations vibrate in the lower parts of your body so that the music feels good. It is important to note that the lyrics of many rap and rock songs are not clearly distinguishable consciously. Now remember, your subconscious mind hears all. Repetition of the message is mental programming. Research indicates that repeated hearings, whether sought out or not, yield acceptance and even liking. When you do not hear the message clearly, you cannot make the conscious choice to accept or reject it. When you cannot make that choice or when that choice is taken away from you, the message is programmed directly to your subconscious mind without your knowing it, thus circumventing analysis and choice in accepting the content of the message. In time, the effects of this kind of programming will appear. These effects can be physical, psychological and emotional. Most people don't pay conscious attention to the things that affect them subconsciously because they don't know what to look for. However, when pointed to, these things are recognized and understood. It has been well established by research that the subconscious mind is capable of reading mirror images, even upside-down mirror images. This also applies to words spoken or sung backwards. This phenomenon is called backward masking. The Beatles started using backward masking on their White Album with the song Revolution No. 9. The song repeatedly says, "Number 9, number 9." Played backwards it becomes "Turn Me On, Dead Man." Rumors swept the world, Paul is dead. Material on Paul's death was embedded in the Magical Mystery Tour album in the last few grooves of the song Strawberry Fields. A low-volume voice says, "I buried Paul." About 2,400 years ago, Plato demanded strict censorship over popular music in his Utopian Republic. In Nazi Germany, the government used music to create a state of mind in the German people. In the Soviet Union, a state commission determined the kind of music to be heard. If music was such a powerful tool for control in the Soviet Union, it can be used in the same way in the United States and the rest of the world. Ayatollah Khomeini, leader of Iran, placed tight controls on music broadcasting and banned certain types of music as a threat to his rule. Orwell's 1984, music is tightly controlled because of its power to communicate and influence human behavior. Confucius said, "If one should desire to know whether a kingdom is well governed, if its morals are good or bad, the quality of its music will furnish the answer." Change in musical style is inevitably followed by a change in politics and morality. Change swept Western civilization, not just the United States, in the 1960s that was brought about by a change in popular music by the British invasion of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones and other rock groups. More recently, rap and hip-hop music has impacted culture across all ethnic and socio-economic demographics among young people around the world. Many ancient civilizations recognize that music plays an important role in determining the character and direction of society. They believe that music possesses a tangible power that can be used to bring about change within an individual and society. Such power in the hands of evil and ignorant men would have dire consequences for society. The most successful propaganda uses the arts as a delivery system. Art is a way of seeing, and what we see in art defines what we understand to be reality. Reality is a state of mind. Change your state of mind and you change reality. The population has been conditioned by a mass media created reality. Long-term exposure to this artificial reality cannot help but have an enormous impact on the social, political and spiritual life of the nation. Many people, especially young people, accept unquestioningly the reality presented by the media. Popular culture, movies, television and music, carries messages about how society works, what's right and wrong and how people should behave. Entertainment is not value-free. It has ideological content and presents a worldview that influences those who watch the programming. Entertainment is not just entertainment. It is also propaganda. Watching television often creates an altered state of consciousness, because the television screen, while appearing static, actually flickers. What causes you to go into an altered state? In hypnosis, it is actually body relaxation and a carefully patterned voice roll. The hypnotist speaks with a regular beat, as if matching his words to a metronome. In fact, any repeating light or sound pattern can lead you into the hypnotic state of mind, a state of mind that is just like daydreaming. This is an altered state of consciousness. Think of the times you have caught yourself staring blankly at the television screen, losing all sense of time and place. When you stop conscious thinking and your mind goes blank, then your mind is in its most suggestible state. It is in this state of mind where you are the most receptive to mental programming. Think of the many times you have seen flashing words in both local and national TV commercials. The flashing words are the conscious distraction for the eyes. While the eyes are being occupied, the message being spoken is programmed directly to your subconscious mind. Anything consciously perceived can be evaluated, criticized, discussed, argued, and possibly rejected. Any information programmed subliminally to your subconscious mind meets no resistance. This subliminal information is stored in your brain with an identification that will trigger a delayed alarm clock reaction capable of influencing your behavior. On June 22, 1956, the British Broadcasting Corporation experimented with projecting subliminal images on television. Pictures were flashed on the screen too quickly to be seen consciously, but they did make an impression on the subconscious. Subliminal perception is the process whereby you receive and respond to visual and sound information without being aware of it. The message, in the form of printed words, pictures, voices, is presented either so rapidly or so faintly that you are not consciously aware of having seen or heard anything. The BBC experiment was followed by an experiment by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation doing the same thing, projecting subliminal images. Mexico's Televisa commercial TV and radio network has experimented extensively with subliminal broadcast techniques. In the U.S., TV station WTWO in Bangor, Maine conducted an experiment in November, 1957. Experiments were not limited to television. In 1958, radio station WAAF in Chicago broadcast sub-audible commercials. Seattle's Cole broadcast hardly audible taped messages below the music played by its disc jockeys. "How about a cup of coffee?" was one, and "Someone's at the door" was another. Marketing researcher and psychologist James Vickery tested subliminal ads in a New Jersey movie theater. "Hungry? Eat popcorn and drink Coca-Cola" were flashed on the screen at 1/3000th of a second every 5 seconds during the movie. Sales increased for popcorn and Coca-Cola. On December 8, 1972, the New York Times reported that In-Flight Motion Pictures Incorporated would begin selling subliminal commercials embedded in the movies they would distribute to all the major airlines. Stores across the country are reducing theft an average 30 to 50% by broadcasting subliminal messages such as "I will not steal." Stimutech Incorporated of East Lansing, Michigan markets a computer video system that flashes subliminal messages on your television while you watch the regular programming. The subliminal messages are prepared by a team of psychologists to change the thinking patterns and behavior of the viewer. Using what was called the precon process, the picture of a skull and the word blood were flashed subliminally on the screen in the movie My World Dies Screaming. Some words and images trigger strong emotional responses in people. Laboratory experiments show that people will react to words like blood and to pictures of skulls with quickened pulse, faster breathing, sweating palms and other indications of heightened emotions. The Exorcist used both subliminal sounds and pictures. A number of times during the movie, the face of Father Karras became a 2-frame, full-screen death mask. 24 frames of motion picture film are projected per second. The death mask flashed on the screen at 1/48th a second. The consciously unnoticed word pig appears many times throughout the movie. The terrified squealing of pigs being slaughtered was mixed subtly into the soundtrack. The buzzing sound of angry, agitated bees wove in and out of scenes throughout the film. People really did faint in large numbers, many more became nauseous in varying degrees, a great many more had disturbing nightmares. It is interesting to note that William Peter Blatty, the author of the novel and producer of the movie, is a former CIA operative who served as the policy branch chief of the Psychological Warfare Division of the U.S. Air Force. According to previously classified documents, the CIA tested subliminal manipulation in movie theaters during the late 1950s. The Bruce Lee Kung Fu movie Game of Death illustrates how easy it is to manipulate what the audience thinks. Bruce Lee is billed as the star, but an actor impersonates him throughout the movie. Selective camera angles attempt to hide this. Close-ups of Lee from other movies are used to give the impression that Lee himself appears throughout the story. The difference in the background of these close-ups and changes in color give away the technique. This movie was put together with skillful editing to lead up to the climactic fight sequences that were shot with Bruce Lee. The foundation of film art is editing, wrote Russian film director Pudovkin in the preface of the German edition of his book on film techniques. In an experiment at the Moscow Film School, Lev Kuleshov created the impression of a single actress by joining the face of one woman, the torso of another, the hands of another, the legs of yet another. An anonymous British film technician is quoted in a front-page article in the London Tribune, August 5, 1949 saying, "We claim that with judicious cutting and an adroit use of camera angles, it is simple to make a fool of anybody. We can distort the emphasis and meaning of ministers' speeches not only by cutting out statements but by simple use of long shot, medium shot, and close-up. For any statement said in close-up is given greater significance on the screen than one said in long shot. There is no end to the tricks we can play with this simple device." Some of the most spectacular footage of the San Francisco earthquake and fire in 1906 was faked. Newsreel companies often staged events. During the Mexican Revolution in 1914, they made arrangements with Pancho Villa to fight his battles in daylight and to wait until the cameras were in place before launching his attack. Much of the newsreel coverage of World War I was faked. Literary Digest printed an expose in its November 13, 1915 issue. The practice of faking scenes of celebrities by employing impersonators was frequently used by the March of Time Screen magazine. Known instances of content manufacture, recreation, personality impersonation are documented by Raymond Fielding in the American Newsreel. On October 30, 1938, the planet Earth was invaded by men from Mars. Not really, but many people thought so. The New York Times, Monday, October 31, 1938 wrote, "A wave of mass hysteria seized thousands of radio listeners throughout the nation between 8:15 and 9:30 o'clock last night when a broadcast of a dramatization of H.G. Wells' fantasy, The War of the Worlds, led thousands to believe that an interplanetary conflict had started with invading Martians spreading wide death and destruction in New Jersey and New York. We are ready to believe almost anything if it comes from a recognized authority," writes Howard Koch in his book The Panic Broadcast. Koch wrote the radio script performed by Orson Welles and his Mercury Theater on CBS. Thousands fled from a crisis that had no existence except in their imaginations. The dramatization of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds was presented as a news broadcast with a cast of characters that included the anchorpersons, correspondents reporting from the field and outside experts brought in to comment on new developments. Despite disclaimers, people thought they were listening to an authentic news broadcast. The public had already been programmed to accept the news broadcast format as the means for transmitting and receiving true, factual information. Produced on videotape for realism, the 1983 made-for-TV movie Special Bulletin about terrorists exploding an atomic bomb in Charleston, South Carolina looks and sounds like a real news broadcast in every detail. Despite disclaimers, people thought they were watching an authentic news broadcast because they had already been programmed to accept the information presented in the news broadcast format. Storytelling is the oldest means of transmitting information about how society works and what's right and wrong. There is not much difference between primitive man sitting fixated in front of the flickering light of a campfire listening to stories about how society works and what's right and wrong from modern man sitting fixated in front of the flickering light of a television screen receiving information about how society works and what's right and wrong. Television is by far the most powerful weapon of psychological warfare in history. Think for a moment about the way newscasters speak. The patterned speech of a newscaster is similar to that of a hypnotist. Local and national news anchors look directly into the camera and into the eyes of the viewing public. The eye contact made with the viewer is also a hypnotic technique. And a newscaster is also an accepted and respected authority figure, thus encouraging acceptance of the information presented as true and accurate. The capacity to lie with a picture and be undetected has been greatly increased by modern computer technology. Thanks for listening, family. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video. Peace.